How are we doing, everybody? It's this lull between Thanksgiving and Cyber Monday when people don't know what to do with their computers. So they throw them in a thing and they watch movies instead. I mean, that's what I did. I don't know. Anyway, welcome to episode 43. I guess technically this is movie 43, except... Oh, I should have done that. That would have been a good idea. Anyway.
I would have vetoed that. I would have used my power of being the starter of this channel to veto that. It never would have happened. I do have some power still, no matter if I'm the host or not anymore.
So yeah,
Don't forget
that. We're talking Apollo 11 from a few years back. I'm actually host, compare, whatever you want to call it, and selector this time. Joining me as ever is Owen.
Hello, Internet.
And AJ.
I wish I could introduce myself that enthusiastically, but I can't.
So, yeah. It's annoying because... maybe also good because... there isn't, like... there's stuff to talk about, but I don't think we're going to be dramatically discussing stuff when it's a documentary. It's going to be more sort of the technical side of things. I basically brought this in because we haven't done documentaries before, and I wanted something that is relatively recent and I guess somewhat topical, as I guess the space race comes back in, well, the moon race I should say, comes back into prominence, certainly as it appears to have been over the last few years. Plus we're somewhat close to the 5th anniversary release, which was, I think it's Sundance, it debuted in January 2019, and of course, you know, the Apollo landings were 69, so we're close to the 55th well, we're getting up to the 55th anniversary for it, I should say. And of course, this was also one of the many, which was one of the ones that you thought was going to be shoehorned in to get recognised at the Oscars, and got completely ignored. Yeah. You know, the fact it got PGA, I think it was nominated, won a lot of the stuff at the Critics' Choice, won at the Editing Awards for documentary. I think it was nominated at the Independent Spirit as well, because technically this is independent, because it was, I think Neon distributed it for America, and I think that's still on the film, but certainly for over here, Universal picked the, well, I think it's international in total. Universal picked up the distribution, and to me also, I think this is a good example of, I guess, the new trend ever since, I don't want to say Senna, but it must have been in or around that time, of the documentary that doesn't have any vox pops. Well, sorry, doesn't have any, like, cut to camera or somebody in a studio talking. It's literally used archive footage with a little touch of sort of enhancement of audio, shall we say.
Another thing this doesn't have on top of talking heads is narration, which is a nice change of pace.
Yeah. Yeah, we just, the only narration we really get is the archive clips from Walter Cronkite, or the first 20 minutes is brilliant because it's just like, this is Mission Control, It's just like, as soon as that comes in, you're like, oh no, something's happening. Says it at the start and says it at the end, as if, just to clarify, this is who I am.
Yeah, because what makes it fresh also about just being footage without talking heads or narration is documentaries can be manipulative,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like a lot of that manipulation can come in from being told what the footage is you're looking at rather than just seeing the footage and just like this is just what it is, but also how they managed to do that, but the movie is so cinematic to where it's basically not only does it come together like you're watching a movie, but the footage is so clear. Like not only is it a movie, but it could have been a movie that was made today about this.
I do
And that
feel that this sort of got thrown in the Peter Jackson enhancer, like with Get Back and everything, where it's like, let's just make this look really good. Let's take that 70mm, 4K the hell out of it, and just put it on a cinema screen. I can understand why they cropped it down to a 45-minute thing and put it in IMAX screens, because as a scientific thing, it's pretty awesome.
also we were talking about this being our first documentary for a movie club. Is this also our first G-rated movie? I feel like those are pretty rare now.
Probably. Out
Like
of
not
the
not even just for us, but in general, it feels like G-rated movies are so rare.
Yeah, because practically every Disney Illumination, any sort of animated thing, is at least for us rather than a U for Universal, is PG at least, because it has threat. It's too scary for the kids. So yeah, I guess that's the advantage of doing it like having a document. That's the thing is though that I find fascinating is most documentaries, at least over here when they come out, are certificate E, as in they're exempt. For some reason, Apollo 11 isn't. It is a U. It is not exempt from classification, which I don't get. Was bloody Michael Collins basically saying, I promise to let you know if I stop breathing. Was that enough threat to go, whoa, whoa, that's a U. That's not an E, that's a U.
I talking about the movie being cinematic. I did have a question to kind of go around, which is how do you guys feel about the inclusion of the music?
I kind of find it useful and sort of like distracting in a good way. That's the thing. Because when you have sort of the tension of like the music to the countdown of oh, that was a massive drop in frames. What the hell? No, I just have a big light and it's just going very red. Hang on. Why is that doing that? Please don't tell me it's the other computer that's causing that. Okay, it seems to have held off. Good. The touch where I think it helps is when you get the sort of countdown sequences at the various points, just the takeoff, but like the countdown to separation and the countdown to when they sort of put the thrusters on, to get to the right speed to get into the orbit, and then the added tension of like, are they gonna run out of fuel and be stranded? Are Buzz and Neil gonna be stranded like before the moon because they've either run out of fuel, or they're gonna do it wrong and get the speed wrong and crash into the lunar surface with no chance of getting back. In that aspect, it was sort of, I guess adding to the atmosphere, adding this sort of like capability of they're not going to do it, even though, wait, this was 55 years ago, we should know it. I don't know. Your take, Owen?
I think it makes it very ominous. Like, it could, if you don't know any better, which if you're watching it, I have a feeling you probably know what happened with Apollo 11. But the thing about it is that if you're just watching it blind, basically what ends up happening is you're getting that experience of literally being there. You're not there, but you feel as if you're there, and you're getting all that tension just rising. Every single note that is played just adds to what's about to happen. Like when they finally make the moon landing, and then everybody just breathes a sigh of relief that, and we're doing that as viewers too. We're in the control room with all the people that are just breathing a sigh of relief that everything is good. They've landed, everything's fine. And we are in that atmosphere with that tension building and building and building and building. The only thing I didn't like is that wonderful country folk song at the end. That's not the point.
I got used to the music because the thing about it is the idea of you're watching it just as it happened. You're just watching footage, and that's all it is.
Totally.
I feel like it's kind of jarring the first time you hear the score. Because it's kind of
monotony.
Because it comes in kind of guns blazing when we first hear it. But then as it goes on, I basically felt the same way you did, Owen. But I guess there was also that thing where he only used instruments from like 1969, so it stayed in universe, I guess.
Certainly.
But yeah, and then how I use this as a lead-in from that last comment was that the music does end up playing a part in it feeling cinematic the way that it does. Even though the footage is doing that fine by itself, it does start to get enhanced by the music rather than too distracting.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, and also, you do get the bits where you can obviously tell the audio has been sweetened. Like, I'm pretty sure that the rocket moving along to the launch pad was that loud you wouldn't have heard the workers at the bottom talking and murmuring like right at the very start and things like that. And splicing in like audio bits of like the people that are sort of camped outside waiting for the launch themselves, all the little sort of bits here and there of them getting the money out from the people that are buying snacks from that little cabin or whatever that they had, things like that. Obviously it takes a bit as well, because in some cases you can clearly see they're just using generic footage of inside and stuff. But then, of course, at certain points you actually get, the video, or the film, I guess, of, said person at the desk actually saying the stuff that they can splice the audio to. So that actually sort of looks like it is sort of fly on the wall, like, You're seeing the guy saying, "What about this leak report? Can you get it to me?" And the guy on the end is like, "We're still doing testing. Like, no, well, we need it on the screen. Otherwise, it's gonna go wrong."
I don't know enough about all the historical footage to know what's like the really classic footage and what's the footage that hadn't been seen before that this movie uses. But even so, I still get the vibe. It feels like such a complete picture, and it's like I feel like we didn't have this complete of a picture before. So I don't know if anybody else knows exactly was sort of unearthed for this or whatever, but
So there's certain bits of it that are, when they do the sort of drawings to explain what's happening, they purposely did those in the style of Moonwalk 1, the documentary that came out like in 70 or 71, which was probably the first sort of thing that chronicled it. But then a lot of the stuff was unreleased private archive 70mm stuff from the prep, which admittedly quite a bit of the prep you actually see in the end credits. When you see the actual capsule thing getting attached onto the main rocket, that's the very last thing you see before it cuts to 2019. I don't know whether that's because then if you watch it in loop, it then sort of like goes full circle as the rocket gets taken out. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, the stuff from that, some of the launch stuff, like I don't think it was public where you actually saw the swing arm getting released from the side of the capsule after they'd all been loaded in. Quite a lot of the mission control stuff, both post and during operation, and then a fair bit of the stuff you only see within the last few minutes of the recovery and the post-flight activities that they did. That was all sort of private stuff. Obviously, you've got bits. I'd have thought as well some of the footage that was from the shot, well, the capsule itself, like the 1 frame a second sort of things. Those images, they may not have been fully publicly released. You might have had like one, a still or a frame. You obviously got the iconic, reflection thing, which is the the poster that's in the corner, that iconic image. But some of the stuff, like, I don't know how much of the original 2-hour session that they were actually on the lunar surface even got broadcast back then, because I'm guessing, I don't even know how much archive they even had at the point then, especially when it was the age of let's, although I'd have thought for something as historic as the moon landings, they wouldn't have junked it like they did with God knows how many other British and American TV stuff that was lost to time in the 50s and 60s. I don't think they'd have gone, yeah, this moon landing thing's old hat. They're going to do it all the time. It's not going to happen 4 times, honest. But yeah, I think a fair bit of it is unreleased stuff, but the apart from like some bits where you feel like this is stuff that NASA wouldn't want to share, probably like when they showed like the banks of computers, because if they shared that in the 60s, other people would have gone, right, we need that for our launch and that. it might have meant other countries would have got to the moon, possibly, if they knew what was, powering it and everything, all the computer banks and all that. But like certain bits, you'd have thought that just felt like they were probably, public domain, like the weird stuff, the camera shot of the camera going down from the top, I guess from the lift as it was going down, because normally it's just when you see the camera that's there and the rocket going up as it's blasting off, not the other way around.
Yeah, because it's really fun, especially to watch this and see historical things in a bit more context. Because when he's coming down the ladder, you're thinking like he's gonna say the thing. He's about to say the thing. But what's great about that is he's just kind of talking mundanely about what he's doing, and then he says the thing, and then he goes right back into the mundane things of what he was doing.
Yeah.
It's just right in the midst of all the.
The other bit with the ladder as well, because one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. But then when Buzz comes out, and Neil's, I guess, getting the still images of Buzz coming out, you can see that when he's, when you're supposed to put your foot on the lunar surface, that isn't that's not even one small step or one giant leap. That's like 4 foot from the base of the ladder to the actual lunar surface. The hobbits would be like, "Oh my god, that's miles."
That was also quite well done. Also, how they were able to combine, as far as like the moon footage, they were able to combine like the video and the still pictures and kind of go back and forth. And like I said, it's like you can see the editors putting a puzzle together and giving us the whole picture.
And certainly as well for 1969, how they had the film footage somehow survive, falling down from space, so they can get the footage of, phase 1 disembarking, which meant that the camera shooting phase 2 must have got it, but then also the camera at phase 3 shooting phase 2. So does that mean because you'd have thought the thing would have broken up that much that the film wouldn't have survived? Like that, how did that somehow survive? Because you see the bit with the film sort of run out when you see the second bit fall off. So I'm trying to work out how they got that, and then obviously because I don't think they would have been able to get that via radio communication, at least at the time. Nowadays, stick it on a GoPro and get it digitally via the satellites that are circulating the Earth that all get out and reach that far. You'd be able to do it easy, but 55 something years ago, not so much. So
Do you guys have like a particular favorite shot throughout this? Of course, every time I ask these questions, I have an answer in mind, but I want to hear which.
I feel the bit for me is the re-entry sequence, but being shown from the tiny, 5, 10, 15 degree window where you just see all this fire, and it's like, wait, how's that going out like that? Because from where the window would be, it wouldn't make sense where the fire is, and it's only sort of when it pivots that it actually fits. As soon as you see the curvature of the Earth's surface as it's coming in to full-on re-entry, I guess right before they lose the communication and the footage dies out or whatever. That bit is sort of, at that point it's sort of like, is something going wrong? And then at the same time you're going, of course it isn't. Buzz Aldrin's still here. I don't know about for you, Owen.
Just the physical landing, the way that it's shot, the way the camera is just seeing how the ground is coming slowly, 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 and then all of a sudden there's the moon's surface. I have to throw this out here because this is something I wanted to talk about a little bit. This took place at Kennedy Space Center. Kennedy Space Center was one of the first places I ever visited when I went to Florida for the first time, my first trip here in 1990. And I had yet to return to I returned everywhere else except for Kennedy Space Center. Well, I went with Troy last year, and I actually got to see Kennedy Space Center for the first time. And I'm not, when I was a kid, obviously it was a big thing about going to space camp and everything because that was the prize on the Nickelodeon game show of choice. And I wasn't really like majorly into space or anything like that, but it was really cool to be able to see this. And you mentioned the IMAX cut. There is basically planting the flag on the moon itself is something that is done in a 3D format as a movie that takes place that you can actually see itself. And there's also a setup where you can see the actual surface of the moon and how that looks in a visual format where you actually can physically see it. And that's something that's really cool too, honestly. There's you can see the control center, things like that. Now, the actual Apollo 11 capsule itself is in the Smithsonian, so it's not there. But I mean, seeing the beginning of it where everybody is getting all ready and they're sitting on the grass and they're sitting in the bleachers and everything, watching what's about to happen. I've been in those bleachers, and that was cool being able to actually see that. And it's the garden and taking the transportation to the launch pad and everything like that. It's just a really cool thing to be able to see in person, especially after reflecting on watching these last 2 days, to be able to get more of a understanding of everything, because I actually was able to physically see it. And I thought that was even cooler, especially seeing a space shuttle in person. It wasn't 11, of course, but seeing how massive a space shuttle truly is, I thought that was really cool. And the way that this is shot with the archival footage, I mean, they did a great job. And again, just like I always say with Exit to the Gift Shop, it's something that got screwed out of an Oscar nomination it should have had and probably should have won.
Actually, the gift shop got in. It just lost. Was that Inside Job's year?
I believe so.
Yeah. Yeah, because we were kind of concerned about reviewing a documentary because there are documentary reviews on this channel, but there's not many.
No, there's not many at all.
And especially with this kind where it's just all footage. But I'd forgotten because I had got this from the library once before when I first saw it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I kind of just ended up putting it on in the background, so I didn't really. This was kind of the first time I really registered it when I watched it again.
See, the thing is, I made the huge mistake I always make. I laid down when I started it yesterday, and then all of a sudden I wake up and it's almost over. I was crap. So I have to watch it again today so I'll sit in my chair and I'll stare at the screen and I'll make sure that I'm awake for it because I'm running on no food and barely any sleep. And I just ran. So I literally have nothing fueling me right now. So it's kind of I have to wake up. And the thing is, the way that it's shot is done in such a manner that it demands your attention. And when I was actually watching it and didn't have it on in the background, like it was a MatPat video, needless to say, I really got got the experience that everyone else gets from this movie, and knowing that I'd like to have actually seen this in an IMAX theater myself. Because I have seen the IMAX format in a landing like this, but not 11. So it is just incredible to be able to see.
Yeah, sadly, the closest I'll get to have seen this in a theater is fucking First Man. But
I was getting ready to say, the weird thing about that is I'm such a Chazelle mark, and everybody knows that, and I will not deny this, but that's the one thing I've never seen. I never saw First Man.
interesting. Damien Chazelle's gonna take your fanboy card away.
He can't. I still believe his movie won Best Picture, so he can't do that.
It's one of the few ones I saw twice. I saw it in my local art house place, and then I guess because nothing was coming out of significance in like October or November that year, they re-released it and they stuck it in IMAX.
I don't remember it ever coming close by here. I'm sure it had to have. But in 2019, I had other things on my mind, so I wasn't really paying attention to what was coming out in theaters unless it was something that was going to get nominated. And I never cared much about documentaries anyway, because it's not like I want to see all 5 of them theatrically anyway. I got close, but not quite. Something
Well,
always.
my choice of shot, I was gonna say, is the one, kind of like I think the one Ashley was talking about. Only it was the when they first launched, and we're looking out, and it seems like it's just kind of endless blackness for the longest time, and then you just start to see the curvature of the Earth come into the shot slowly, and it's and Ashley was talking about, don't worry, we know Buzz Aldrin gets through this because he's still around. And punching deniers of this in the face is also really satisfying to see.
I just remembered the other shot that I think is really incredible is the lander, or whatever you call it, the capsule, setting off from the moon to reattach to the module so they can get back. So you just have this wide shot from Collins's capsule in space where he's been alone for God knows how many days. And then you see this, it's literally sort of like the matte shot in Lawrence of Arabia. It's this tiny little dot that's like somewhere there, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then just like literally you see it after about 2 minutes, it then attaches because they managed to connect, and everything went right. Just having that sort of long shot of it, you was going to say this was, I don't know if it was in homage, it probably wouldn't have been in homage to, but something like that just felt like how Gravity starts. Where you see, the ship just come into view, and then it gets to, it zooms in on Bullock or Clooney or whichever, I can't remember. Right at the very start, just, to establish everything. 1, that we're in space. 2, we're at this space station. And 3, it's this person. That's what it sort of felt. It was just like, that's a nice atmospheric shot. And then it's the dawning of, oh wait, that's them coming back. That's Buzz and Neil coming back.
Well, Owen, you mentioned the flag planting. And I remembered this at the time, but then I was reminded again recently how apparently this movie was controversial.
Yep.
for one particular omission, I guess you could call it. I have a couple of things on that. For starters, I guess I can get it because that is, you could say, significant.
Yeah.
But for me personally, I don't I don't feel like too much is missing, because if you want to talk about most the most crucial surface contact would be the first step down there, which we do see.
Sure.
And we get a whole big shot of him saluting the flag for quite some time. So I feel like the reason people were angry it wasn't there is there in a way, but I do get where the actual act of it is significant enough that people were kind of freaking out that it wasn't there. But it's not something I lose sleep over necessarily, but I can kind of get it, I guess.
To some extent, at the same time, if you look at the way it's sort of presented, even when they get a shot of the plaque, and they talk about we come in peace as humanity, not as countries. This is just to say, you know, humans have reached the moon. Not nowhere does it specify Americans reached the moon. I don't know whether that's because of the whole, the space race and the moon race that you've seen dramatized in so many things. You know, even to some extent, no, it's not the same. But with Oppenheimer, it's basically the race as to who can do it first, because that basically goes on the LinkedIn, or the 1960s version of LinkedIn.
Yeah, I mean, you would think it would be more about the exploration in general would be the important thing, but apparently not to some people.
Yeah. Then again, of course, also to fuel the people that Buzz Aldrin punches in the face. By not including it, you don't have there's the smoking gun. The flag didn't move. If you don't show,
Yeah,
it's like if a tree falls in the woods and there's nobody there to hear it, did it happen? If the flag isn't actually shown in the film, did it happen?
yeah. This movie is a total ripoff. I didn't see Stanley Kubrick anywhere.
Yeah.
It's bullshit.
Where's the monolith? Also, where's the bloody transformer that's hiding on the dark side of the moon? Or whatever the fuck was on the moon. What was it, Apollo 18? That Russian American thing?
Where it was, they had like the spider monsters or whatever they
I can't remember. Then again, of course, there was the bloody one of the Iron Sky sequels, I'm pretty sure had Nazis on the moon as well.
I think that's the first Iron Sky
Oh, was it?
actually.
I can't remember. There was plenty of other ones as well. I remember 2 and 3.
And I also, yeah, and talking about the importance of exploration and everything else, I do also like how they included that the news cycle moved on so quickly while they were up there, where it was like where Vietnam was in a lull and Chappaquiddick happened, and it's like, oh well, okay.
Well, because it was like
Um,
because it was the 2 days or 3 days before they knew, at least from the plan, that any lunar surface thing was going to happen. I guess they felt that something like Chappaquiddick was significant enough to put on, rather than just it's our 700, it's hour 84 of our 24/7 moon watch or whatever. Although you'd have thought the Kennedys would have done it at a different time, taking away the sheen from John. And I always forget that it would have been, it was pushed through like it was, probably by Johnson to some extent, as a legacy part of Kennedy's career after his assassination. Oh wait, that's the anniversary this week. Damn it. Um, but yeah, like the fact that Nixon was willing to go through with it, even though he was the rival, he's the opposition party. You feel like in sort of in modern times, unless I guess enough money had been put into it that it was basically it'd be too expensive to just go no. Although maybe Nixon did it to try and highlight or try and bury the news of any continuing controversy happening in Vietnam. It's like, oh look, the moon landing's happening. There's nothing going wrong in Saigon. Honest.
Yeah.
I do find it sort of, I didn't fancy that country song either, to be fair, by Jon Stewart. Wait, hold on. Green Lantern's in this film? Damn it. But I find it fascinating that just by hearing the audio clip that they got of the radio spinning in the module, that they managed to match it up and go, it's that song. Who on the production team is going to be on? I'll name that tune in too, please. Kind of fascinating. It says a lot as well that something like a documentary actually has a soundtrack album. I guess that was the thing as well that I also didn't realize. I know you mentioned the whole, it was instruments in '69. It was specifically just electronic instruments. Because some of those bits don't sound like they'd be electronic. To some extent, and it is brought up on the Wikipedia page, there are a couple of inaccuracies to it. So the bit where the biosensor on Collins's stuff doesn't work, it doesn't happen during the approach to the lunar space. It actually happens like day 8, so it's probably somewhere. Trying to think, I think day 8 was in or around either when Collins was stuck there up on his own while the other stuff was happening, on the surface for a while, or it was in the middle of them circling back to get enough momentum to get back to Earth, sort of thing. That's the only bit that they sort of moved around in the continuity. But I did like the fact as well that we get photo montages of basically all 3 of them, and they time it right at such a point where it looks like they're actually contemplating. It's like life is flashing before them as they get to this like moment in time that can never be recreated. And the other thing that fascinated me was when did Neil Armstrong shave? And Buzz, for that matter. Because when we get to the bit, like, Michael Collins has got a full-on moustache. Because he let it grow out. But Neil and Buzz are, like, clean-shaven, like, where's the facial hair, man? You were up there for 10 days. What's happened?
Well, we can chalk that up to the flag not moving.
Yeah, it's a conspiracy theory. Yeah. I do like the fact, though, when they do use the countdown graphics, though, like I talked about earlier, when it sort of like gives you an idea of, when they cut to 8 seconds and then they just do the slow-mo footage of the rocket going off, and then at the points when they are temporary entry, when it's like as soon as it hits 0 and the speed just like goes, that's going very fast. Somebody's put it into 7th gear. And as I say at the end, when they have when it gets to the landing bit, and you get the sort of when you can hear the warning going off, like saying like the speed's too great or whatever, you get that little graphic flashing up on screen, as if to sort of enhance the, oh no, it's going wrong. And then they added when the time, sort of like how it is in games where it's like the time switches from white to yellow, and then when it gets to critical it's yellow to red. It's like, we're running out of fuel, everybody. Panic.
I guess I should clarify something I said at the beginning about how documentaries are much more susceptible to manipulation when they have like talking heads and narration and telling you what's happening and all that. I wasn't implying that just footage can also be manipulated, because obviously that's definitely also a thing, but it sounds like any time that happened here, it wasn't like egregious or anything.
No. That's the only sort of major bit that sort of got moved, at least in the timeline wise. Whatever. Most of the rest of it probably would be in or about right, because obviously, you know, if they're trying to fix a leak on the rocket, you know, in the hours beforehand, and we have the timestamps of, you know, this is mission control, literally saying, you know, it's at this point, you know, and they're checking on this leak, and then the bit is, I love the bit where it's like, we haven't fixed the leak, but we've bypassed it. So it literally was a case of, sod it, let's do a bodge job. That was one of the another fascinating bits, when you sort of, when the rocket goes up and you get all the dry ice or whatever it is falling on the floor, and then you see sort of the rocket producing so much light from the engines that you see where it's sort of been welded together, and it just looks like it's been like the worst welding possible, yet somehow that's going to have enough power to get them up at least for phase 1. Where it just feels like there's if you look at it carefully, it's like there's holes there. What's going on? You know, if something like that went up now, people would go, that's, you know, that's not safe. Quickly to the chat. Josie mentions them sending her messages over to Owen, which I'll get to in a minute. But Josie also mentions, let us not forget that J. Jonah Jameson's son John was the first man to play football on the moon. And then of course the line from REM's Man on the Moon, if you believe they put a man on the moon. Wait, so Andy Kaufman went there? What?
Put a pin in that for next year, Josie.
The Truman Show. I see. After I saw it for the first time back in 2020, I wasn't a fan of it, says Bry, because it's basically the mission. Revisited for a second time, though, it's better than I remembered. I also can see why it got snubbed for Best Documentary, other than being the most popular one of that year. They already nominated it before, sort of, which was For All Mankind, which came out in 89, I guess, to coincide with the 20th anniversary. I can't remember whether the other ones did as well.
That's I don't know that they would snub Apollo 11 because of a movie from 1989, but You might say that theory is one giant leap.
I mean, yeah. Then again, of course, that documentary is about the entire Apollo program as well. And it had a Brian Eno soundtrack, so it probably was.
So what's what's the thing that's existed recently? I think with the same title. What is that?
Oh.
Is that like a? I want to say it's a documentary series or something. I don't know though.
What? Apollo 11 or.
For All Mankind,
Hang on.
or am I thinking of something else entirely?
No, there we go.
I
For
may
All
be.
Mankind TV series. Wikipedia is my friend. Uh, that's a sci-fi drama though. for Apple, for Apple, yeah, dramatizing alternate history depicting what would have happened if the space race never ended.
All right.
Uh, the fourth season just started a few weeks back, actually. So it's that you're probably confusing it with.
Or I'm
Thanks.
confusing myself.
Thanks, Joel Kinnaman. You're at it again. You did it with RoboCop, and now you just, oh, my word. Um, but yeah, Bry also mentions, oh, in terms of is this the first G-rated one? Bry said no, because Great Mouse Detective was G-rated.
It's easy to forget that, but that is true.
Bry also says, I remember making that bold prediction of predicting it for film editing when I really bet against The Irishman when I think it underperformed and then it got 10 nominations. Fascinating stuff happened on documentary fronts, which we'll talk about tomorrow when we get to awards predictions and state of the race, because interesting stuff happened at the Critics' Choice Documentary Awards, because of course they do them months ahead of time. But yeah, Owen, do you want to go through Josie's comments that you got sent?
Yeah. Josie starts with, this documentary should definitely be taught in schools. Buzz Aldrin trivia, his fourth wife, Dr. Anka Farr, who he married this year in 2023, earned a PhD in chemical engineering from the University of Pittsburgh. Looks like she is 30 years younger.
Buzz, what a crazy man. Oh yeah, that's the one he married this year, at the age of 93.
Neil Armstrong and Mike Collins were awarded a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for television. The name Buzz was a childhood nickname. The younger of his two older sisters mispronounced brother as Buzzer, so they shortened it to Buzz.
That always caught me off guard. Even though it only happens like twice in the film, but every time I've rewatched it, when it's like Edwin Aldrin, and I'm like, that isn't his name.
Neil Armstrong trivia. He had the same birthday as Josie's cousin, Madalena.
Oh.
Interesting. August 5th, if you're playing long at home. With James Gunn, Mark Strong, Janet McTeer, and Maureen McCormick. As well as the late John Huston. NASA realized after Apollo 11 had returned to Earth, they had no good pictures of the first man on the moon to show the world. So Aldrin said later, as the sequence of lunar operations evolved, Neil had the camera most of the time, and the majority of pictures taken on the moon that included an astronaut are of me. It wasn't until we were back on Earth and in the lunar receiving laboratory looking over the pictures that we realized there were very few pictures of Neil. My fault. Perhaps we had never simulated this in our training. 2005, he became embroiled in a bizarre legal dispute with his longtime barber, Mark Sizemore. Armstrong alleged that after cutting some of his hair, Sizemore sold it to a collector for $3,000 US without his knowledge or consent. Jesus. Armstrong demanded if Sizemore did not return the hair in question or donate the proceeds to charity of Armstrong's choice, he would take legal action. Since he couldn't get the hair back, he donated the proceeds to a charity of Armstrong's choosing. Mike Collins' birthday is on Halloween. Same day as Peter Jackson, Piper Perabo, Letitia Wright, Lee Grant, Rob Schneider, and the late John Candy. Other special things as well. You know. He had constantly stated that he never felt bad about not being a moonwalker. He had training with the command module, and there had to be someone to control it well in the mission. Fittingly, he was also born outside the U.S., and technically would not have been American-born if he chose to walk on the moon. His death on April 28th. Interestingly enough, Josie chimes in as the same birthday as her cousin Francesca's husband Louis and their daughter Lily. 2021 leaves Buzz Aldrin as the sole surviving crew member of Apollo 11 command module. Several of the recordings captured with the astronauts during the mission are featured in the documentary. Recordings by Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins earned them honorary memberships in the ASC. In an interview in 2019 on the New York Times on March 8th, documentary filmmaker Todd Douglas Miller stated that his crew had their own mission rules regarding the footage used in the film. We did have kind of our own mission rules. We said if it didn't happen on that day at that specific time, we're not using it. He did say they did break the rule on several occasions, including using shots from Apollo 8's propulsive push rather than Apollo 11's, but he would document there where he used different clips from other launches. Filmmakers were given pretty much unrestricted access to NASA film archives. Much of the footage contains alternate camera angles and footage that has not been used before in any other moon landing documentary. Film footage was preserved in ideal archival conditions by NASA since it was shot 50 years ago, so very little restoration work was needed. Of course, we mentioned earlier the electronic music soundtrack played entirely on instruments available in 1969. Josie has a couple comments and questions. So, where were Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth during the moon landing in 1969? Imagine if they were watching it on TV together.
That thought literally occurred to me while I was watching it. They were in Italy at the time.
Yes, that's correct.
Making that Telly Savalas movie.
During the crowd shots, waiting to view the launch, Isaac Asimov can be seen interviewed. Ashley, have you read any Asimov?
Oh.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Silence. Yeah. Close. Click. Boom. There you go. Close. And silence is about to end.
I don't know why it does it. It doesn't even have to have the game controller plugged in, it still does it. Hopefully that won't be happening in 2 weeks. If so, I've got a second microphone in case it's the mic that's going out. I don't know.
Alright, question.
I haven't. I don't know if I have any physical books, but I've pretty much bought all the Asimov stuff on Kindle when it's 99 pence. So it's there. My only real experience with it is iRobot, really, the movie. And I might have read an excerpt from it somewhere, but I haven't fully read Asimov, no.
Okay.
I have 2 different copies of iRobot. I have the Will Smith book cover, of course, that coincided with the movie's release, and I have one around here. When I did a video on iRobot and I showed it, it's a hardback book, but they made it into script form.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure what I can't remember exactly what the purpose of the book is, but that's how it's written. That's how it's formatted in that version.
All right. The Universal Studios logo at the start of the film is the same one from 1969.
Mm-hmm. That seems
On
to
one
be a
occasion,
trend with a lot of movie companies now. If they do anything that's set at the time, they get that era's logo for it. I'm pretty
I'm
sure
looking at
Fox did it for Bad Times at the El Royale. Um, Paramount have done it God knows how many times for their
I
stuff.
remember Argo has the classic Warner Brothers logo.
Yeah.
Yep. On one occasion, a journalist asked Neil Armstrong what he had to say to those who deny he was there. His response: he wasn't worried. They will return there and find the remains. Still baffles me that there are conspiracy theorists who claim the moon landing was fake.
Is it baffling though? Look at fucking people now.
The thing
Much
that I didn't realize until just looking it up now, we still have 4 people that went on the moon that are alive. Along with Aldrin, we've got David Scott, who was part of Apollo 15, Charles Duke, who was part of Apollo 16, and then Harrison Schmitt, who was part of Apollo 17's mission. So there was a very good documentary from about 10 years ago called I get confused. There was one at the time around that time that was called In the Shadow of the Moon, and I think the other one, I think they did a documentary of it as well, but it was certainly a book that I read called Moonshot, which was basically a travel book, and it was going to visit and interview every person that walked on the moon. Obviously, you couldn't do everybody because Pete Conrad and Alan Shepard died, and James Irwin died sort of in the 90s. And this book was sort of like 2000 and mid 2000s ish. So obviously, there's a lot of people, including Armstrong, that they managed to get around to interviewing. But yeah, that if you want an interesting overview of lunar surface stuff, Moonshot is a really good read.
the ground footage featured in the documentary, filmed in 65mm Panavision. Close-up shots were 70mm format, the same format, of course, used in 2001. 3 Emmys were won by the movie for Outstanding Sound Mixing for a Nonfiction Reality Program via single or multi-camera, Outstanding Sound Editing for a Nonfiction Reality Program, camera rules apply, and Outstanding Picture Editing for a Nonfiction Program. Yeah, reading the Wikipedia page, it was nominated for a ton of things. It won more than it was nominated for. Like, it's lopsided. So it was nominated for a lot of things, but it won most of them. Replaced one of the 5 nominees for editing at the 2019-2020 Oscars with Apollo 11. We've got the winner, of course, Ford versus Ferrari, The Irishman, Joker, Jojo Rabbit, and Parasite. I can't do that.
None of them deserve kicking out.
I'd probably say Joker.
I mean, if that's probably the if you had to take one out, that would be the weakest of the 5. But
yeah, there'll be fucking idiots that say The Irishman just because it's 3.5 hours because they don't know what the fuck editing is.
Yeah,
So
yeah. The Irishman
it's
was a
Thelma
3.5-hour movie
Schoonmaker,
that
damn
I
it!
watched in the computer chair, did not fall asleep during. So that's damn good editing, my friends.
It's Thelma Schoonmaker, damn it!
Exactly. Replaced one of the 5 nominees for Best Sound Mixing with Apollo 11. You got the winner, 1917, Ad Astra, Ford versus Ferrari, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Joker.
for mixing, I'd probably say Joker. I don't want to seem like I'm hating on Joker, but
Joker or Ad Astra?
It was weird. It was weird how many nominations Joker got. like Joker made my own top 5 of that year, but they got really fucking lazy with the text that year.
I mean, everybody knows my hatred for 1917, and I didn't see Ad Astra, so I can't really say anything about that. And I'm definitely not going to say any of the three that I really enjoyed. So it's difficult to go with it because if I say 1917, I look like an idiot because it's my bias. If I say Ad Astra, I don't have any knowledge of it, so I can't really say it. So I think I'm going to abstain in this one. Sound editing. The winner was Ford versus Ferrari, or 1917 Joker, Rise of Skywalker, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I don't want to sound like I'm saying Rise of Skywalker because it's Rise of Skywalker.
Again, for me, it'd be between Joker and Star Wars.
But sound editing Joker, I kind of get.
Don't understand it at all, and I'm not even going to pretend that I do. That's why I'm glad the sounds are together again, finally.
I would say if I were to take one out, it would be Rise of Skywalker, but I don't want people to think that's for the reason it might seem.
I would concur because, again, I would get heat of trying to take out 1917, and I'm not taking out three of my favorite movies of the year in any way, shape, or form. So, and Ashley, one question that Josie asked as we take it home here: are there any other space-related docs you would recommend?
Yeah, In the Shadow of the Moon is certainly one. I can't remember if that was a series or a one-off thing. I remember there was something that was like there was one that was like 10 episodes or whatever that I know I've bought off Amazon. But I'm pretty sure there was one that was like in '07 that was on I got it on DVD, and it's that sort of that might be the one that I'm sort of confusing with Moonshot, because I think it was like interviewing the people that did it, sort of thing. In terms of documentary, I guess that there is that one that shows up all the time on BBC Storyville stuff, and it's Cosmonauts. Admittedly, more about the Russian stuff, but considering how Russia really were the people that pushed ahead with actually getting into space itself, that's a very fascinating documentary, and that's probably available somewhere. Those are the main ones that come to mind off the top of my head in terms of actual factual stuff. Other than that, Gravity. Gravity's the best fake space movie ever. Not I'm saying Apollo 13's fake. It's just there's dramatized stuff in that.
Would be the end of the comments.
So, yeah, no other live comments. So I guess final thoughts. Starting with you, Owen.
It's interesting because when you presented the idea of a documentary to me, and I did some research on the fact that I'm basically not getting a talking head, I'm getting just a bunch of archival footage. And I was kind of apprehensive, and I did, as always, procrastinate to the very last possible minute. I will say, though, although it's not something I necessarily would revisit, it's definitely something I'm glad I've seen. And it checks off the box of another movie that was greatly critically acclaimed documentary that I would have had to watch anyway in a previous year. If it would have made it to the Oscars, I probably would have watched it. It did go to BAFTA, but I didn't care as much back then. Um, but yeah, it's solid for what it is. I kind of wish, in retrospect, that I would have been able to see this in an IMAX theater because I think it would have been even more impactful. Just watching it on my 40, 50 inch screen I have in front of me is enough. Really, it was still great. Even watching on my little computer screen was great. I mean, it's solid for what it is, and the fact that I have gone to Kennedy Space Center a few times, seeing those locations in reality is really a cool atmosphere too. So yeah, I would like to put a rule on documentaries for Popcast Movie Club moving forward. And I was gonna say that and lead with that, but at the end of the day, yeah, I'm glad I watched it.
AJ?
Yeah, I just like the idea of a cinematic documentary where it's like we were saying, where it's like documentaries can be susceptible to manipulation. Like even if it's footage or whatever can be manipulated, still the idea that you're not basically being told what you're looking at, you're just observing it for yourself is something that I really love, and the fact that it feels so big and grand, and even stuff that we know about already, and the stuff that we can like expect still feel when we see the full context, just feels like even bigger than we've ever known it before as far as learning about it, which I think is much more helpful, like what Josie was saying about how it should be like played in schools and stuff like that, where it's like, because you don't really feel like you're being taught to or like told something the way a lot of documentaries do, which can make them kind of uninteresting. This you can get much more wrapped up in, so yeah.
And yeah, that's the reason that I sort of selected it, is because I felt it was one of the very few documentaries that I felt compelled to sort of see at the cinema, like to get that experience, and they want an IMAX screen that big and seeing everything. It's something. Don't get me wrong, it was still entertaining and immersive. Although I don't know, I'm trying to work out why the one descriptor on Amazon says harrowing. I guess to some extent it is, but harrowing is normally suitable for like horrors and thrillers, not.
I think it's I think it's one of those adjectives people just kind of latch onto, and it like they feel like it's getting their point across, but they don't quite know what it means.
Collective Welcome to Chechnya is harrowing. That's the proper harrowing. But yeah, anytime I bring I'm not gonna. In essence, if I do bring documentaries, it will either be stories that I think people need to see, in any case, or something that, just as an experience feels like it's suitable. It's not like something that you're gonna see, looping on History Channel or whatever. Like you get plenty with other documentaries. I'm being very selective. I'm not just gonna put, oh, here's this documentary about something I like. Don't get me wrong, we'll get to that, because Beyond the Mat is overdue.
Darn right it is. We have never talked about it on this channel before.
But yeah. So with that, that's us done for this week. So this is where the schedule happens. So we won't be voting until just before Christmas, at least I think, off the top of my head. So to sort of catch up, and then so we can start afresh in 2024. We're going back to my predictions from 2022. So in 2 weeks, just because, one, I don't want it to be picked and then it'll have to be some other film. We're finally getting to Get Santa. Also because we know that it's free on a whole lot of places, so it's very accessible for everyone to watch. So I guess it's it's a bonus pick from or whatever. But the reason why we're doing that is because in 3 weeks we need to catch up on what we missed, and that is Owen's pick from 4 months ago of Rent, which I guess is also Christmas themed. So you're gonna get.
There's one. There's one in between Get Santa and Rent.
Is there?
Rent's not till next year.
Oh.
There is a special pick from someone who's not here tonight. You can read into that any way you want. And that's going to be the one after Get Santa.
Oh, right, yeah.
And it may or may not also be Christmas themed, but I guess you'll have to wait and see now, won't you?
I mean, it probably is if it's literally going to be the week after. They're all sort of Christmas, New Year themed.
Yeah, that's accurate.
We purposefully did it so then we can sort of, hit the reset button, and then we just have, because hopefully it's the 4 of us now. In theory, that means 2 January, 2 February, and then we have, 4 going through to November, December. So then it will make sense even if we see Christmas films in November, it will make sense. Because, dear God, the channels over here, one of them's been showing Christmas films since October. Why? So, yeah. However, also coming up, i.e. tomorrow, the 3 of us will be back to do our November predictions for awards, with a lot of interesting developments on a lot of things. Movies in, movies out, movies shaking all about. I don't know whether they did the hokey cokey. We'll have to verify. We'll fact check it. Don't know why I'm looking there. That's just a corner. In terms of other stuff, a few of my snack stashes, i.e. McDonald's, i.e. the crap ton of Galaxy stuff that they're doing. Did they pay them off? Did Mars pay them off? Yeah. Again, I don't know. That's another corner. I don't know why I'm looking at that. There's that. There's also a fair gaming videos. Once the new computer is in, I can get doing a lot more of them on a more reliable rig. I hopefully say, because I haven't stress tested it yet. I guess that's what the next couple of weeks are going to be about. You've also got Owen Sippin' Snacks, Voice of Liberty, California Escapades, videos from the past month or two for you to catch up on. And of course AJ's movie reviews and verses. Especially when we get to the point when everything is coming out on Apple and Netflix. I'm seeing so many of these things, like the TV listings over here. In a few weeks they're doing a whole night dedicated to Leonard Bernstein, and my dad's like, why? And I'm like, there's a Netflix film about. So BBC are cashing in 8 hours of Leonard Bernstein, I guess, to make the 2 and a bit hour movie on Netflix seem palatable. I don't know. All that's there. Obviously, the Killers of the Flower Moon review went up yesterday as well, so you can catch up with that. On the socials, you can find Owen at Sir Owen Disney and Popcast Network for all the notifications about videos. I can be found trying to get free t-shirts and maybe other, like, happy stuff. I don't know. Mostly. At Ash is my name UK on Twitter /X/ whatever they're going to call it in 2 months' time. I just feel they'll change it to something completely stupid. AJ, of course, cannot be found on social media, and just like Keith Richards, cannot be killed by conventional weapons. And with that, thanks to Bry, thanks to Josie, thanks to the lurkers, thanks for you watching on archive if you weren't able to catch us live. And with that, until next time, everybody. Yeah, property. It's like Monopoly. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Also, that's all we've got to say about. Oh my God!